Sacred Mass, Chapter 63, The Confession. Helmer did not speak for a week after that incident, and when he finally opened his mouth to speak, he said to Gregory, "I wish to go to confession." "In which church?" asked Gregory, now curious. "The Fifth Church of Mordred," said Helmer. He got dressed in his favorite pink dress, and he got his hair done up with the ornamental crown holding up his silky black hair. And Gregory dressed himself as a gentleman, and then he left with the Arch Magus, and the two walked together in silence for a bit. And Gregory was the first to break the silence. "Master Helmer, where did you first let God into your life? Was it all just to wood Ambrose, or did you really believe?" "I am a man of science and of magic," retorted Helmer, "but that doesn't make me an atheist. Like you, I pray. I pray every day, and usually before going to sleep, and it helps keep the nightmares away. And recently I started to pray whenever I go home my patients, and I pray for the knowledge and wisdom to be a better doctor. I do not want to cause harm to anyone, but for Marina, prayers can only be heard in the church, and she had become obstinate about me going to church after I challenged her devotion to me. Yes, I remember that you started to shorten your visits to host classes to go to church with her. And she made me kneel for 2 hours praying to a stone idols, and my knees would become so numb from kneeling on the floor. And since I was a little sinner, she did not allow me to use a pillow to kneel. And I read the scriptures with her, and I memorized all of the passages, and then at the end of each visit, she would quiz me on my piety," said Helmer. "Did she hurt you if you failed to pass her quizzes?" asked Gregory, growing increasingly concerned. "No, her problem was that my prayers sounded to her insincere," said Helmer. "And then she had the brilliant idea of having me confess my sins to her favorite priest, the Father Ambrose, and she wanted me to apologize for humiliating myself and him in front of everyone, and I did as she asked, and she must have overheard my confession because I forgot to wipe out the room and I locked the door, and I should have controlled myself, but I was weak. And it doesn't surprise me that Marina hates me. She has always been a scary cat because of her looks, and I wasn't there for her. And when we are in the market, she yanks my hand as she rushes out of the large crowd. And more than once she has bruised me, but I said nothing because she was terribly frightened." "Oh, Master Helmer, that is just awful. You should have spoken out a lot sooner before things escalated this far," said Gregory, petting the Arch Magus' fragile hand. "I'm sorry, Gregory. I did not want to be a bother. Allan loved his sister so much, and I do not want to break their bond," said Helmer sadly. Changing the subject, he said, Your scales are changing color again." "This is getting old," said Gregory, sighing, "and now they are this dull, silvery color, almost like lead. And at least my tail looks as beautiful as ever, but people keep yanking at it in order to see if it's real. This is starting to get annoying. You should task a board elemental to keep an eye on your tail for you," suggested Helmer, "and it can do a threat display whenever it senses an unwanted touch." "I don't want to have to hire a bodyguard for the rest of my life, help me," said Gregory sadly. "I am not some reptile, I'm a person." "And you're a very nice person, unlike me," Gregory said Helmer, "and one day a handsome man is going to see what a great catch you are, and the two will get married, and you'll have beautiful children who will be companions for Lord Julian." Helmer entered the temple with Gregory, and Ambrose saluted Helmer with a smile, and Helmer smiled back. Ambrose said, "I am ready to hear your confessions, Helmer." The priest gently guided Helmer to another room, and Gregory was familiar with the routine, and he waited for the door to the confessional to close, and he waited, and then he checked to see if the coast was clear, and he was curious about hearing Helmer's so-called sins, and he weakened the wall to eavesdrop on the confession room, and he placed his ear against the door, and instead of hearing confessions, he heard the sound of kissing followed by mournful moans. Gregory peeped to the keyhole, and he saw Ambrose kneeling before Helmer, and with this sight alone, Gregory had got enough context clue to bugger off and give the Arch Magus some much-needed privacy. And he sat in a nearby chair as if waiting in line for the confessional, and Missy sat down beside him, disguised as a woman dressed in a black mourner's clothing, and she cradled in her arms little Lizzie, who was sleeping soundly for a change. "I don't know, Missy," said Gregory, "and I feel that the priest is taking advantage of Helmer." Helmer is a wolf and the priest is a sheep. The sheep saw the wolf approaching and instead of escaping, the sheep brought the wolf into the stable, said Mincy, musing while she played with a wolf and sheep figurine. Let me see the figurine, said Gregory, reaching out to Mincy. Mincy handed Gregory the sheep figurine, and upon closer inspection, the figurine was a wolf disguised as a sheep. Gregory instinctively placed his hands in prayer position as he waited for Helmer to finish his confession. And inside the confessional room, Helmer was splitting the young priest in half, and after encouraging his lover, Amber had positioned himself on all four, and Helmer pulled out the red hair of his lover to straighten his back. And he started with a slow, steady rhythm, and then he added his hand, and then he used his hand, and with one hand he caressed the slender frame, and with the other he encouraged the delicate small instrument. And by now he had been there for 3 hours with the priest, and usually Helmer only fooled around for an hour, and now he was officially late for dinner. And Helmer usually kept tabs on the time using the clock in the confessional room, and since he had been more than a week, Amber had tampered with the clock in order to compel his lover to stay with him for a little longer. And Mincy eventually appeared to the door, and she said, "Your dinner's getting cold." Helmer released his lover from his grasp, and he came to look at the clock, and frowning he said, "This was your last chance, Ginger, goodbye." Cause Ambrose had messed with the clock so that it runs a lot slower. Helmer saw Gregory patiently waiting, and he sighed and said, "I'm sorry my confession took so long, but I have a lot of things that need to be forgiven." "You're not fooling anyone, Master Helmer," said Gregory, smiling. When they arrived home, Allan had already fed the children, and Leda was visiting, and she wanted to practice ballet with Hope as her dance partner. And the playroom in Allan's home was utilitarian in nature, and Julian had a second workstation there, and he was busying himself by cutting a garnet. And Julian had finished his earring design based on the Nebrosa Aurela sea slug, and he was preparing the finishing touches which employed 5 other garnets. And Caron was sitting in the couch napping, and Allan was sitting beside Caron staring at the door. And he had been giving Caron a full massage to pass the time while he waited for Gregory to return. And Allan sighed with relief as soon as Gregory returned to the living room, followed by the Arch Magus Helmer. Helmer sat down in a nearby couch, and he said meekly, "I am sorry. I was late because I broke up with my boyfriend again." Allan laughed heartily, and his laughter awoke Caron. And smiling, Allan said, "You have always been very sneaky with your relationships. Let me warm up the dinner if it pleases you." Allan warmed up the pizza, and he made a frosty lemonade for his father, and for Gregory he made lobster rolls and ginger ale. "So, father, who was your boyfriend?" asked Allan. "A father," said Gregory, laughing. "So he had kids like you," asked Allan, not getting the joke. "He was a priest," said Gregory, laughing harder. "Which priest?" asked Allan. "That priest," said Helmer. "Honestly, Dad, you can do better," said Allan. He did not hurt you, did he?" "No, he couldn't hurt me even if he wanted to," said Helmer. "He is weak. Weaker than me, if you can believe it. And he is engaged to another church mouse, and he's just blindly doing what his father orders because it is the easiest path to tread." "You certainly know a lot about Father Ambrose," commented Gregory. "Ginger won't shut up about his pathetic, easygoing life, and he lives in heaven, but he doesn't know it or he doesn't appreciate it. I wish I had Ginger's problems. My life would be bliss if my biggest worry was marrying a girl I did not love." "Huh," sighed Helmer enviously. "Forget him, Dad. You deserve better," retorted Allan. "Did you at least have fun with him, Master Helmer?" asked Gregory. "Yes, give us details," insisted Caron. "Ginger is inexperienced but enthusiastic," said Helmer bitterly, "and I get bored of him after half an hour, and if I'm really tense, I entertain him for 2 hours. "Ouch," said Gregory, laughing. "Poor Ginger." "And what are you so smiley about it, Allan?" asked Caron, poking at Allan's face. "I'm just glad to be having a normal night, talking about normal problems. And it feels like this could be our life from now on, just peaceful, mundane issues," said Allan, smiling. "But don't you miss Marina?" asked Caron, concerned. "Marina and I drifted apart over the years, and before Father came back, there were days we did not see one another." And at times it seemed to me that she was coming up with excuses not to see me or to speak to me, said Allan sadly. And it was always, I can't talk, I have music practice, or I can't talk, I'm going to church. After dinner, Allan pampered his father, and he got him bathed and dressed, and he brushed his teeth, and with a libations concluded, Allan rocked his father to sleep, and Helmer was placed in the bed without any bed sheets. And even with the air conditioner, the room was a tad too hot, and to ward away the bad dreams, Allan gave his father the doll Priscilla, and Helmer hugged the little doll while he kept the prayer bead necklace under his pillow. And Allan turned off the lights and he put it on the nightlight. And he closed the door gently behind him and he walked on tiptoes to his husband's bedroom. Gregory was in the other bedroom with Sunshine, and Seabreeze was awake, and Gregory was reading the good book to him to see if his little niece felt like sleeping or not. And if she did not, he was tasked with walking with her all over the house. And Gregory had become more homey as of lately, after getting rejected so many times. And in the bedroom there was also Leaching, and he was listening intently to the good book, or maybe he just liked the sound of Gregory's voice. And Mincy and Allan were out on a date, and while Ian was playing dolls with Sylvia, and on that night Allan was in a particularly enamored with Caron, and his husband had been very sweet to his father, and this often put Allan in a particularly good mood. Today everything's about you, sweet Caron, said Allan, kissing his husband, and may I take your order? I want to have complete control tonight, Allan, said Caron, biting Allan's ear. And Allan was in such a good mood that he willingly submitted to Caron, and he allowed Caron to tie him up and blindfold him. He did not know what to expect, and this excited him. Everything was perfect as it should be. About midnight, Letton and Hope had gone to bed, and since it was a play day, the two had brought pillows to sleep on the playroom, and Julian was still focused in refining the garnet. He was the only one who was still awake while Julian yawned and he stretched and he looked at the time and he decided to go to sleep. It was then when he noticed that there was a person outside his window, and the fellow had climbed up the lattices and he was wearing a traveler's coat, and his head was hidden underneath a scarf, and the guy knocked on the closed door window. And when he saw that he had gotten Julian's attention, he asked, "Is your grandpa awake?" "I do not have a grandpa," retorted Julian, looking for something sharp. Alright, that's the end of that one. Bye bye, God bless.